And think about that. Some people philosophically think that the sun will give them the nutrients. I imagine they must have to eat something. But why do you think Eastern, Western religions and philosophies fast? Because they realize the food is like lust, lusting after the food, gluttony, lust, whatever it is taken away. It's one things of the five senses. And I always told you that we can go out and enjoy the world. I heard it from that Hasidic rabbi who was into the Kabbalah. Enjoy the pleasures and everything in the world, but realize how the falseness of it. Realize the real source of happiness is here. Realize that the real center gets centered, and the brain will know, the stomach will know physiologically. God gave us this gift again. How does a cut heal itself? How does everything else related to food, the body knows how to digest it. Thank God we can't control that, because you know what? If we can control the way our body, say we could control the way our heart beats, we'd probably be dead because we wouldn't know what to do. And the same with our breathing. God gave us this gift, but he did give us the gift because we could put food into our mouth. So really, it was something under our control, and we screw it up. But when we get centered again, intuitively we'll know. Just like, again, if some of us here were ever under normalcy with the food, and knowing people who eat it normally, they don't think about it, but normally they let their brain. And sometimes, it's amazing. People stay within a pound or two their whole life. But here's another concept, and all these concepts are towards that awakening towards food. Did you ever think of this? That a person who's anorexic, right? Their whole psychology is a thought of not wanting the food and not wanting that in their stomach, right? A binge eater wants the full feeling. But why is that? It has to do with, I'm sure it has to do with the thinking. Perception is 95% of our problem in life. Perception about everything. So the perception change comes when we get centered. And we'll intuitively know with everything in our life. A lot of people say, well, how do you do something? And they want to go out and get a job or something. And if somebody calls me up and they, like say a sponsor or however you want to talk about it, I would just say, go sit. Read step 3. Prayer, do the 3rd step prayer. And they say, well, how can just sitting on the couch, or how can, in our case, if we're talking about a diet here, how can not having this long list of foods I should eat or shouldn't eat, how is that? I need my self-will to do it. No, we'll intuitively know. That's where the promises come in on page 84, 85. And the 10-step promise starts on page 84. And it tells us exactly what happens when we get centered. And this is when we're centered towards food. Again, a normal person, or when we had normality, we were centered. But we made this decision to become obsessive about it. Just like, fear and all of these things has to do with page 62 talks about the selfishness, self-centeredness in our lives. So we have a way to get out through all, again, these 12 steps has to do with every philosophy and religion. It's all in here in the first 164 pages of this big book. It's all in here. It's pretty amazing, the whole thing. And it goes on to say here on the bottom page 84. Now, I read this many times at the meeting, but if really, rather than listening through here, take it into our hearts, it's pretty amazing. It says, we have ceased fighting on the bottom page 84, anything or anyone, for by this time sanity will have returned. So I didn't realize where the problem was, that it was in my thinking that I was insane. Do you realize how insane our thinking is towards food? So how do we get sanity? There's only one solution, because Dr. Silkworth said, how many years ago? Almost 100 years ago? He said that that they couldn't solve it. The scientists and all the doctors at the time, they called it synthetic knowledge, couldn't solve this problem. He said there's only one solution, a spiritual solution. Page 44, we agnostics talks about there's only one solution, like 3 times, I think, on that page. We can only resolve it through a spiritual solution. So we will seldom be interested in liquor or food. If tempted, we call it from as a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. So again, become sane and normal. Step 2 said. What does step 2 say? We became restored to sanity. How? The hope that we'd have this power greater in ourselves. Look, actually, in my case, the power has always been there. It's in every man, woman, and child, it says in our reading here. It's always been there. But we block it out with the shame, guilt, remorse, fear, self-centered fear. So when we get centered, all of these things, there's nothing anybody could tell you that you don't already know. I used to go read 100 diet books. I used to ask 100 people, right, how to do this or try to figure it out. But intuitively we'll know how to handle all situations. And it's actually the 9-step promises says that, right before that. Our whole attitude of life will change. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that baffle us. We're going back to the 9th step on page 84. Intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. Again, intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. So this baffling thing with the addictions and the alcoholism and all of this, it's pretty amazing. And, you know, some people say, well, we do have an allergy to the body. It's true, because of these crazy foods the corporations give us and crazy thinking we have. We eat God's gift.